Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast are of the presenters and the presenters only and do not represent the views, opinions, or strategies of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Please like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 72. James and myself and Toasty. Toasty's still in transit on a layover, but James and I are home now from Mid-States. Bill is back from his vacation. How was your vacation, Bill?
Oh, it started off as a disaster and ended fabulously. You want details?
Well, just the ones you're willing to share.
Okay. My wife, we went to the Cayman Islands like we always do. My wife booked a villa. It's like a little secluded group of housing there with its own beach and everything. Had no air conditioning, had no TV, and had no warm water. Hot water, warm water it had. And after 2 days being down there in 85-degree weather, and then the 60-mile-an-hour winds that go across the North Point, we said, F this. I found the place, and my wife says, it's another $2,000. I said, take it out of my account. I don't care. And we went to this place on our old stomping grounds. Granite countertops, coffee pot, Keurig machine, espresso machine, brand new appliances, air, everything. And it was phenomenal. So we loved it. We like I said, the first couple of days were rough. After that, it was smooth sailing, peaches and cream, and rum and Coke.
Awesome to hear. I'm glad you were able to get your vacation in, though we did miss having you as a guest with us at Mid-States, but we understand. We understand.
My wife was like, don't even think about it. I said, oh, hell no. I like living too much.
And people understood as well, Is he here? No, but we have his T-shirts. So, and they were going pretty good. Ruby took control of that when we got there, and she pulled them all out and folded them all up special and arranged them by sizes so people could just find their size and take one off the top. It was great. She handled that pretty well.
Well, and I'll get the national convention T-shirts made up. I'll probably go like 250 of those at least.
Yeah, I was pricing ones. I had some people ask me if I was going to have T-shirts at national too, so I got to check the expenses there. But I'm hoping to have T-shirts at national.
Well, I'm going to make up the one T-shirt that you gave me.
Yep, that will have all four of us. Yes.
Yeah. I get them for about $5 a pop delivered. Did you like the quality of the shirt and all?
Yeah, they're great. And like I said, well, I'll bring these out. I pretty much got talked into driving to Reno to transport stuff. So that's where we're at the moment. Is I am planning on driving and doing all the transporting of all the goods.
Okay.
Just to put that out there. So if I come home with another box of T-shirts on my porch, I'll know what they're for.
Well, I'll see if they can direct ship them this time.
That drive for me is it said 1 day, 9 hours. So it's probably about a good 34 to 35 hour drive for me. Straight through. And more than likely, I'll be by myself.
I see her pulling up with, 58 empty Starbucks cups in the back of her Jeep there. And I'm fine. I don't have too much caffeine.
No, I don't drink it would take me a lot longer than me and coffee do not get along on the road. It would probably be like 2 cases of Monster Energy drinks or something to get me through. But no, I'm just going to put in for more time, at least another day ahead of what I normally had. That way I can leave on Friday. Either Thursday evening or Friday, so I can be there by Sunday.
Julio.
Yeah. James, how was your week prior to going to Mid-States?
Well, it was a normal week at the post office, just gearing up for mid states and working on social media when I get home and trying to make sure that any statements made and anything that I put out there that I've heard from other people is at least verifiable of something that was actually said. So that way things don't get misrepresented in any way, shape, or form, because that's been called out by several people in recent times on other people's posts, especially in other groups that I don't have access to. But getting to mid states was pretty easy for me, considering it was much closer than the last two. And then getting a hotel room was easy. Thank you, Kristin, for reserving that for us.
Hey, not a
And
problem.
got to meet up with Toasty again, so that was a good time. And bunked with him. I give him a roommate score of 8 out of 10. He was asking for that,
Even when you
but good
guys,
roommate.
yeah, no, even when you guys, as I had just gotten to bed and I get a message because Toasty needed his pants hemmed up and they got some hemming tape, so I was just head laid down into bed. And, hey, we gotta get these pants hemmed. Okay, I'll be right there. So they were in the room next to me, so I'm like, sorry guys, I'm in my jammas, but here we go. Breaking out the iron in the ironing board and get the pants to the right level. But it turned out perfect, so that worked out.
Yeah. And then had a wonderful time at Mid States. I appreciate meeting all the people that listen to us on here and gaining new listeners that are now listening to us for the first time. It's just a whirlwind of an event for a lot of things, but very, very well organized, well laid out, and they don't mess around on the timing either.
No.
It just flows from one thing to the next, and it's a ton of information download. Some people get overwhelmed with it, but as Josh says, if you get overwhelmed, take a step back, take a deep breath, and step back in. All in all, it was a good weekend for everybody. It was nice to have a chance to talk to several of the national board members and have good conversations with them about things. I think it was really well attended for all the states that are involved in the Mid States region, plus those that were from other states, like Toasty. Really, now it's time to unwind, go through the notes, make sure I know what everything was talked about, because this is information that every rural carrier needs in these conferences. So getting in there and listening to how everything is talked and how people word things and the phrases they use and the changes in the words that they use between different sections of talking about the same topic really gives you insight into how they think about it. How was Mid States for you, Toasty?
It was a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed it. I really want to go back again rather than go to my own, but I'll probably go to my own and then always make plans to go to mid states. Weather was beautiful. The week before, work was pretty easy. Nothing too terrible, just a couple of political ads as usual. Flight up, not too bad. Turbulence on the second connecting flight. Other than that, I had a great time this weekend. And roommate score of 8, really?
Did you wear your thong?
Oh, that's why. My bad.
Yeah.
See,
There you go.
your fault.
I mean, you can't carry a pink thong off like I can, but at least you could have tried.
And then I would have gotten you up to a 9 at least.
Yeah. I mean, at least take your tighty whities and wedge it up there. I mean, what the hell?
Okay, I'll bring him to Reno. Don't worry.
All right. So, Mid States. Bill, it was a lot of fun to talk with you on the way back about everything that happened. But
Oh my God.
I really want to get Toasty talking about his first time and the stuff that he learned going to Mid States compared to SWAC.
You mentioned it earlier, just basically the pace that they were going at. They had a lot more snacks. They were really neat, clean, organized. I didn't know that y'all had like a spirit award of who brings the most, which state brings the most people in. That was fun to see. But just the way it was organized, it was similar to SWAC, whether you have the sponsors coming in at first, talking about, Tesla Tree, Aetna, benefits plans, APCU, everyone coming in the first day basically doing that. Unfortunately, Devin couldn't make it, so he wasn't able to do OWCP. Yeah, it's just straight up. All right, we got 10 minutes for the next thing. All right, 10 minutes is up. Boom, we're moving into this. Boom, go. So it's fast paced. It makes it more digestible and doesn't kind of drone on and on like, not to be rude, but the auxiliary went on and on at SWAC, but she was at a time limit this time, so it actually went really smooth for mid-states.
And what Toasty's talking about is Mid-States Conference has a traveling trophy. And, of course, the host state is ineligible for the trophy. So it's up. Michigan usually tends to win it when we're on the road because we normally have 40-plus people that show up. We travel. Michigan travels. What can I say? This year, who got it this year? Was it Ohio? I don't remember.
No. I don't know if it was Ohio. I don't remember either. That was eating at that point.
Yeah. But what it is basically is the state that, whatever state is traveling to the hosting state that brings the most members to go then gets the trophy. And so it does sometimes get moved around. Like I said, Michigan's had it for the last few years, but since we hosted, we had to give it up this year. So, and it's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of a little rivalry. And we have a rivalry, obviously, Michigan and Ohio. So when they had the lanyards with the name badges and stuff, they had 2 U of M lanyards for Ohio's current president and former president. That were, yeah. So,
That was dirty.
It was, but it's, it's the friendly rivalry. It really is. And, we try to make it fun. That's how I say. Us Midwesterners know how to throw it down. That's all I can say on that. But yeah, it was a good time. I'm glad you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it was nice seeing more than SWAC. It's just 4 states, so it's Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. With mid-states, it's 12 states. So you got Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota.
Yep.
Minnesota.
Yep. And so it's a little bit bigger crowd. We had 78 first-timers. That is just awesome. 78 first-timers.
Wow, it sounds like people are starting to participate. Wonder why.
People are hurting. And when people get affected by things in a negative way, they're more likely to pay attention. And when people aren't listening, they want to come and find out why the people who should be listening aren't listening.
Well, I'm really disappointed that I couldn't come there, but since we already delayed the vacation once, I wasn't going to risk my wife's wrath. I may be stupid, but I ain't dumb.
I wanted to ask you guys, what was, with all the speeches about things like Michael Gann and President Maston, Vice President Pitts, Director of Labor Relations Bridget Boziak, and Director of Steward Operations Shirley Baffa, what were some of the pointers that you think carriers should know about that they talked about at Mid-State? You want to start that off, Kristin?
Let me pull up my notes, but I will say that for all of our Academy instructors and OJIs that listen out there, the updated material is in the works. The electronic version was submitted to our national board and vice president for final approval, and they are hoping that it will be going to print and coming out eventually. So it is in the works, guys. That I do know, and it's a lot better than what it was. That was definitely a good thing to hear.
Not bad to get it out in less than a year of working on it.
Yes, it has gone back and forth.
Whose job was that to do that?
That is the vice president.
Oh.
Okay, here we go. I have my notes. Training material, there was 22 corrections just to the table of contents alone in the original version that the post office gave us. There was 7 reviews. USPS redesigned the RX manuals. Then they updated the RX training. USPS said no. The final came down in January for the quality review. Then it was paused. Submitted to the printers. No specific date. 2 days ago. This was Saturday. So 2 days prior to Saturday was Thursday, is when they got the electronic version to which includes an OJI manual to do the final okay, let's go and get it submitted to the printers. That's going off my notes.
Which is funny to me because of the fact that you're an OJI, right?
Yes.
We've never had one in my office in 26 years. They're just, the subs are just tossed onto a route. This is what you're going to train on, and that's it. So you're going to learn from somebody who does the route in their fashion versus the way they should be doing it. And I say that because after years, people develop tendencies and, little cheats and cutting corners and stuff like that they shouldn't, and they're passing them on to new people.
As an OJI, I'm thrilled about having a new OJI manual, obviously. But yeah, it's so yes, the new training material is in the final stages of getting it submitted and then out to all the academies and OJIs. So that was actually a plus to hear. That really, I was very happy to hear that.
I was too. I was happy to hear that after over 5 years of not updating the manuals, they're finally updating them.
I had a pretty decent conversation with Vice President Pitts after hours on Friday, and and he agrees with me. He and I we're quite similar when it comes to RCAs and training, and them being really the backbone of the rural craft. We really do have a lot of things in common on how we feel about that and training and whatnot. And so we were discussing that a little bit, and I told him I was going to be running against him, and he smiled and welcomed it completely. So it's I like that acceptance in it. It was pretty cool. I think he was happy to see some people step up.
How about you, Toasty? Do you have any notes that you wanted to share with everybody?
I want to rip them out real quick out of the bag. Remember, one of the big numbers that I remember, unless the notepad in the wrong place, was, 25.6% of rural routes are overburdened. And the adjustment process is only starting to begin with those that are capable to do it. So in other words, if there's enough in the office to do these kinds of things.
And some of that with the route adjustments even comes down to if you have an office that is primarily overburdened routes, it depends on the size of the office. Are you going to have room to add more equipment and add more routes? I mean, that's definitely one of the factors in the cutting of routes right now is can the office handle adding more routes to it, physically have the space within the office to do that?
Rent a trailer. That's no excuse. I mean, if you have severely overburdened routes that are, in the 60, 70 range, they need to be cut because those people aren't getting paid for the duties that they're performing day in, day out, weekly, monthly, by the year. They need to be cut now, not just the ones who are over 48K and meeting the evaluations, but the ones that are taking 2 and 3 people to handle them on a daily basis, like in Sonora, California.
Yeah, speaking of that, he did actually talk about that. In the first section, when he was doing the presidential address, he actually said, I want my route cut. That's all he said was, I want my route cut. And then we get past the break and get into the national officers Q&A, and he actually turns around and says more about it in the fact that there are so many routes overburdened in there that they can't fit enough equipment in there for the vacant routes that would be built off of the overburdened routes in his office. And I know we hear from all kinds of people about these things going on. It's a problem across this entire nation. And to be honest with you, the thing I'm looking at most of all is that with all these overburdened routes and the Delivering for America plan pushing for these S&DCs, I think they're going to hold off on those specific routes, offices that are too small to handle the amount of mail that is flowing through them, to try and get them into an S&DC where they can add as many routes as they need to fill that space and pull all these carriers at least 20 to 30 minutes away from where they're currently working to work in this S&DC, because according to Maston, the S&DC distance is a 30-minute drive. And they're talking, so somewhere around, they still have like 55, 72, or 86. He couldn't give us a straight number on that, but there's currently 60 S&DCs running. It's a possibility that that's another way that they could be doing it. We are speculating. This is not fact. Just want to put that out there. But considering all the stuff that we've heard from all different sides on this, we talked about how at the last SWAC, he was talking about the resolutions they take forward, and he specifically said we take about 20 to 30, but closer to 20 is better. He actually stood up there and explained the resolution process for negotiations. He said the entire national board, day in and day out, is negotiating in the collective bargaining agreement. It seems never ending, and the Postal Service is exhausting to talk to. Out of the 420 resolutions, we gave them all a look on which ones to go forward with. It has been taken out of context how it works. As they say, about 100 or so of the resolutions were the same thing. Now, it doesn't mean 100 of them were exactly the same resolution. It means that 100 of them matched other resolutions that were already put forth by the delegates. Ones that sound great, but only benefit a few, that are good resolutions that may affect 100 to 500 carriers. Should they be affecting that little when they can affect just the majority? The Postal Service, like for example, the resolution for the Postal Service to build roofs over CBU units to protect carriers from the sun and inclement weather, what would be the cost? It'd be in the millions of dollars. So he hopes we understand why they don't take all resolutions forward. Bill, your thoughts on that?
Okay. You take 420 that are passed by the states and forwarded to the national board. They have a committee that turns around and sorts through them and picks the best one out of a certain category and forwards that and throws the other 9 away. Like you said, there's about 100 or so that are, basically duplicates. That still leaves you 300 of them. 300 of them, which represent the craft who have put the time and effort, got the resolution through state, forwarded to national board for consideration, and the national board is going to nitpick and cherry pick the solutions they want to take forward because it affects the greatest amount of carriers. You aren't representing the greatest amount of carriers on a resolution. You're representing all carriers every day. So if it affects 15 or if it affects 1,500 or 15,000, I don't give a damn. You put it forward and you sit there and you argue. If it's got the value and you have the arguments to back it up, you argue that for the contract. Those people have invested their time, effort, and union dues to be represented. Then do the damn job you were elected to and represent them. You want to sit there and tell me it's going to take endless hours? I'm sorry. Is there anything more important in your life right now than to represent the craft that you were elected to represent? Is there something better that on your docket than that? I don't care if I don't see you at a regional meeting. I don't care if you're sitting 24/7 for 3 months straight in negotiations. Represent the craft, the entire craft. End of rant.
Oh no, we're gonna keep that going, but I agree with you on that. These resolutions were put forth as a bargaining tool, and you should have every tool in your toolbox when you go into these negotiations. Yes, some of them are very similar. Some of them have different wording. Some of them have a little bit different result or a different way to get the result you want. That's a little bit less beneficial than the best one you have. But when you go into a negotiating room, you go in with your best resolutions first, but you have the ones that slowly come apart a little bit from the best one down to your worst one that's still a great benefit to the craft. And I'm not calling it the worst one, but I'm going to use my resolution that I put forth at National last year, where RCAs become career RCAs at 2080 hours or 2 years. There was also a resolution where it was just straight 2 years. There was a resolution where it was just 2080 hours. There's many different ways you could have put that resolution forward. Having each of those resolutions there would have actually benefited the craft. If you turn around and say, well, this resolution matches that one, so we'll throw it out, you're cutting your nose off in the negotiating room. Because, oh, you don't want to do the 2080 in 2 years? Fine, we'll do the 2080 hours. Oh, well, you don't want to do the 28 hours? Fine, we'll do the 2 years. There's your negotiation. Now you've had 3 chances to make RCAs a career position. And I'm not talking about making them PTS. I'm talking about RCA career. One guaranteed the scheduled day off of the route that they're assigned to, and any days that their primary is available, plus any days they can cover a route under the order of consideration. But yes, like somebody said in the chat, least best for the situation. You need to have a way to ensure you put forth as many of these resolutions that your brothers and sisters of the craft have told you they want you to take to the negotiating table. End rant. I have more. There were times that it was said that Rex was great. There were times it was said that Rex needs improvement. There were times it was said that everything that you need is available to use, like the end of run report as an accepted way of verifying numbers. The ASFM 100 numbers are accurate. Scans are 5 to 6% of your evaluation. Mapping can fix your coverage factor. Machine reports on the radar report are pretty accurate because the national board apparently evaluates every single radar report to the machine count, to the end of run reports, and so on. They are getting scanning exception reports from management, and he told the story of one carrier who had 171 box holders or something like that.
118.
And 118, thank you. And 118.
And my thought on that was, when these scanners go have a mind of their own and they just go randomly hitting stuff and you're not touching it.
Yep.
That was my first instinct as soon as I heard that.
And he was talking about how that 117 extra box holders just put that route from an H route to an overburdened 48K, even though it could have been a scanner error.
Or carrier discretion.
But I do agree with him in saying that we need to be accurate on this, because if we're not being accurate, or we have scanner issues that cause inaccuracies, we need to get that fixed. We need to be honest in what we're doing to get an honest evaluation. And of course, he showed us percentages of time for people under or over evaluation. And on a bell curve, his favorite tool to determine whether things are good or bad, apparently carriers are about 50 minutes under their evaluation daily.
I have it.
It's less than the old system.
No,
which is less than
the average. Well, that was the mid-state average.
Mid-state's average, yeah.
Mid-state's average was about 5 hours under evaluation for the week.
Yes.
Well, that's because it's cold and you want to get the hell home.
And then he did admit that the union could have done better in training carriers on the scams, more than just putting it out on the website and posting blurbs about it. Kind of too late smart, in my opinion. But then he went on to say, I said, it's not until they get evals back that they'll realize how bad it is. They'll realize how much they need to do for their routes.
Well, here's my problem with this whole situation, James, is that, again, management's getting a free pass on this. The onus is on them for training. And since they haven't trained their own supervisory staff, then how can you turn around and put it on the carriers who are required to be trained by management?
That, or why are we not sending these stewards and ADRs and DRs in to force management to train carriers with grievances? Why are we not getting these people into these offices and saying, hey, this manager needs to sit down and have a training with you. If your manager does not sit down and train with you in a week, call me. We'll set up a class action grievance and we'll go after it that way. Things like that could have prevented the travesty of the very first mini mail survey where 66% of routes went down. And what's funny is we haven't gotten a report of how many routes went up in the second round of evaluation. We did get a report in the third one because it was only a small amount that we're doing a little bit of changing after that. But we need that middle part where people rebounded after the devastation of the first mini mail survey.
And going on with the training, if I remember right, at Mid-States last year, James, you brought it up to Central Area Manager who was there about the training. It was also the same manager who was present this year, who is now my district manager.
Temporarily.
My district manager for my district.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he did get asked about that training thing.
Yes.
Again, not by me this time, but he got asked by somebody else. Are we going to do anything about training these carriers on the route cuts? And how is it that last year you said that you can't train some of them because they won't pay attention or they won't do this? So how can you assure us that these managers know what they're doing when you said you can't even train them yourself? And he had no answer.
Well, I did find out, because he did say he met with all the postmasters in the district. And I do know that my postmaster, being it's my district, the main discussion that he had with the postmasters, which was within the last 2 weeks, I don't remember exactly what day they went for that in my area, the main focus he had on was RCA retention.
Yeah. RCA retention on his numbers was like, what was it, 700 people?
779.
779 people. And then Maston gets up there and was talking about all this stuff. And he goes, 779 RCAs is not enough. We are 41,000 relief carriers short. And one sub per route is going away.
Possibly.
It's change.
Mm-hmm.
It's change. We're not against this, he says. It will help this business. And he said the word business. We are a service, sir, not a business. And then he said, either accept the change or get left behind. And he says, I don't say anything I won't stand behind.
Oh,
Bill,
hold it. This is from a gentleman who stated that he has 34 years as a rural carrier, and technically he's in the craft, but hasn't been a rural carrier on his route for over 20 years.
Well, either accept the change or get left behind, Bill.
Oh, okay.
I think that you
really
you're
don't
going to
want
be the change he needs to accept.
You don't want me behind you, James.
Do you think that the people should tell him that he needs to accept the change or get left behind?
No, definitely. Like a change of address to Sonora, California. I'll help him move.
So he then went on to say, we need to do something different.
Oh my God.
He turned around and also, now I talked about this a little bit in the pre-show. He says he does interviews with many different news agencies, and he has been misquoted a lot. But there was a post that was made about him that was 100% factually incorrect, like terribly bad. Even I thought it was a terrible post. Do you agree on that, Kristin, on that post?
I do have to agree. Especially when the carrier brought his phone up to the stage and said, here, read this. And it was definitely incorrect.
Yes. And so he has gone on to publicly say that he is actively looking to engage in litigation for misquoting him in that aspect. And for those who misquote him, they will come after them legally. Now,
And he will use the full force of the NRLCA to do that.
He
and
will
the
use
money.
your dues to do that.
Yes.
But I do have to caution on this as somebody who has worked in copyright, libel, and slander previously with another agency. When you are an elected official, whether it be a government elected official or a union elected official, there is a different standard for what constitutes misquoting, libel, and slander versus the general public. So you have to also be careful of that minefield. But that post that was made about him in that aspect definitely comes to the qualification of a misquoting and could be subject to legal ramifications.
Yeah, it was bad.
And
So I just wanted to definitely put that out there. So just so you guys are aware, we are aware of those statutes and laws that pertain to that as well on this podcast. He was talking about his route being adjusted and things like that. And to be honest, you can speculate all you want on it, but management will choose to cut routes wherever they want, however they want, as long as they do so within the contract. And of course, if they don't, they'll do it anyways until you just file a grievance. And then they'll settle for language.
Seasonal routes are a work in progress.
Seasonal routes are a tough one.
Yes.
Seasonal routes, because of the changes in volume and things like that, you're going to have to be overburdened in your low period on top of your high period in order for a route cut to happen now. But if you're overburdened in your high season, but underburdened in your low season, they're probably not going to cut you.
At least not anytime soon.
At least not anytime soon, according to our president. But again, management will mismanage when management can get away with it. Oh, he did tell us that other than the one carrier he had a long conversation with, me.
You.
Yeah. Most postal routes have lost mail volume, have lost flat volume, and parcel volume has gone up slightly. According to his statistics, and I actually wrote these down as accurately as I could, letter volume is down 60%, flat volume's down 40%, and parcels are up 17%.
And this is nationwide. This is not
nationwide.
This is not
just his bell curve.
Yes, this is a nationwide percentage. It's not an office route specific, area specific. This is a nationwide average.
So if you have evidence that your route has not lost those specific numbers or has not lost more than 10% of its letter and flat volume, comment on this episode on social media. Let us know that you're one of those that didn't lose as much volume like I did. I have only lost 9% of my volume on my route from the 2018 count on DPS. I've lost 11% on flats, and I've gained 30% on parcels.
Sounds like we need to change somebody's name to Captain Obvious.
Well, I do know there are carriers that did lose a lot of volume. I will admit that. There are extreme ends on it too. There are some people that their mail volume's gone up since the 2018 count. And I will tell you, anybody that has an Amish community, their volumes are extremely higher than any other region of the United States because the Amish use the postal service, because they don't use email. They don't use cell phones. They don't pay their bills online. Toasty, you have to leave. You got a final thought you want to give us before you get on your flight?
Yeah, it's getting loud in there. He's good.
Oh, it's getting loud. Okay. All right, Toasty. Well, you enjoy your flight back. Let us know when you land, and we'll see you on the other side at National.
The most important delivery of the day.
So get yourself home to your loved ones. All right. So Toasty's out for the day. That's okay. He was talking about, Michael Gann was up there talking about the collective bargaining, and he says that during the collective bargaining, you have to be careful of what is said out in the public because bargaining never ends. In resolutions, priorities are made. The labor movement inflections can be made towards our contract bargaining. The cost of living adjustment is the difference between the UAW and us. Most unions don't have that, and says we have less ground to make up on wages.
What?
Yeah, Michael Gann said we have less ground to make up on wages. He did discuss the right to strike versus interest arbitration. He did say you look at GM and Paramount and versus the Postal Service in contract negotiations. GM and Paramount's presidents, CEOs make millions and millions of dollars versus the Postmaster General is only making $500,000 off the Postal Service. So obviously they're trying to say that because the PMG makes less money, we should make less money. I guess
He'd
at
have
least
been
that's what
better
I'm
off
inferring.
saying that we're a service industry and those are shareholder companies, for profit, than to say something like that.
Yes. He did say the Delivering for America plan twice in his monologue. The most of the provisions that they're putting forward in the negotiating table are for hiring and pay. And then he did bring up the comparable law where the Postal Service has to pay their employees comparable to the private sector, and tried to explain that you can't describe the word comparable. Is it comparable to the private industry of UPS and FedEx? Is it comparable to the private industry of McDonald's? I'm like sitting there going, but number one, McDonald's isn't union. Number two, we are a service, so we need to be comparable to the unions that do services. So what unions do services? FedEx, UPS, those should be the ones we're comparing to. Our flight attendants, they just got their record contract. We should be comparing to them as well because they do service too. But no, apparently they can't describe what services are. He said that they're continuing to talk, which seems to be a theme with all these union leaders is, well, if they're not willing to negotiate, we'll just go back in and continue to talk to them. And then if that doesn't work, we'll turn around and continue to talk to them. And if that doesn't work, when all else fails, we'll step out, we'll step back in, and we'll try to talk again. Gann said the Postmaster General is supposedly, there we go, we finally got it back into the podcast, supposedly committed to better pay. Parties are in close communication, which to me is if you're in close communication, your butt better be sitting in that office with them working on it day in, day out.
But it was also mentioned that the chief spokesperson does not allow anyone else to speak. That is the USPS chief spokesperson. Does not allow anyone else within the USPS that is present to speak at all.
He did say, we'll see if we have a contract by expiration or we'll continue talking. He went on to say striking is not in the cards, completely off the table. Well, yeah, it's against the law. But yeah, it's difficult to hit home runs in arbitration. Our best option to make a case as best we can without arbitration. It is going to be for the good of the craft. Is it going to be good for the craft to go to arbitration or just continue to talk? And he wants no arbitration during bargaining, as the NRLCA has a 27% success rate in arbitration. Sounds to me like you're just not putting the right people in arbitration, in my opinion.
It seems that Michael Gans is trying to distance us from UPS and FedEx and other organizations who deliver products. Isn't that what we do? We deliver products, whether it be mail, flats, magazines, newspapers, parcels, medication, home goods. Is that the gist of his argument, that he's trying to separate us from that so that we won't expect to get the raises that they received?
I don't know what he was thinking when he was talking about this stuff, but to me it seems like the disconnect between leadership and the craft, and leadership and wanting to make things better for the craft as a complete whole, is too wide of a gap to be conquered in less than a year here. It's too far gone for us to look forward to something meaningful and productive in terms of a contract negotiation here. For instance, let me throw this out there. The PMG did his discussion in front of the Senate hearing committee and didn't give meaningful information to senators about how he can fix this stuff and how things can be better. And I feel that a lot of times that's the information that we get from leadership, is that it's just enough to let you know that something's being done, but it's not enough to tell you how it's being done, what is being done in at least a meaningful way to show you that the craft matters, that the postal service that we provide matters if it's being done. You know, there's a step 4 on Rex that Bridget talked about at this conference. It's still being talked about. They got the paperwork from management to continue the step 4. And at this time, they're still verifying the paperwork and verifying the accuracy of the paperwork. One of the things that I took away most of all from this is the duty of fair representation. Now, our director of steward operations, Shirley Baffa, said that leadership takes duty of fair representation very seriously. We definitely need to hold them to that duty of fair representation, whether it be our national leadership, regional, our district reps, assistant district reps, area reps, local stewards. We need to make sure they are doing us the service that our dues pay for. Because we will not survive if we don't have a way to hold management accountable.
I'd like to have everybody in the audience right now put a little hand emoji up if they think that management is treating us like we're an important part of the post office. I don't see that whatsoever. Not in my office, not in the offices I talk to almost every week. They do not consider us essential or important. We're just bodies.
Now, I will say that just prior to the Mid-States Conference, the National Board, your Director of Labor Relations and Director of Steward Operations, who were not in attendance for this, put on the monthly steward training on whether your coworker has a grievance or a gripe. And I will tell you one thing. The gripes that the presenters put up on the show in front of these stewards failed epically when every single gripe had a steward who stood up and put forth language to grieve it. That was epic. To have every gripe that national office could put up turn into a grievance. That made me proud to know there are stewards out there that have the knowledge and determination to find a grievance no matter what the issue is. So those of you who were in that meeting and did that, I applaud you and I give you a pat on the back because that was awesome.
That's monumental there. That really is.
If every steward out there, no matter what level of the national steward system, had that type of dedication to fight problems in offices where carriers are trying to tell you something's wrong, we wouldn't have half the problems management's giving us now. But our stewards need the support from every level above them. Our carriers need that support. I hear it every single day. I get messages. I get tagged in issues on social media of problems in offices that if the steward would step up and actually file a grievance with this carrier, help this carrier with their grievance, and not settle for language, it would solve half the problems with management, minimum. And we just had a person in our chat say, my DR told me once when I was going to file a grievance that not to bother, it wouldn't do any good. And the poster says, also known as, I don't care and not going to fight for you. That right there is the issue for me.
That right there is failure to represent.
It is failure of fair representation. Failure of the duty of fair representation, which is a law that the stewards have to abide by. And it doesn't matter if you're dues paying or non-dues paying. They have to represent you. And I know there are people out there that go, well, everybody should be dues paying. Everybody should pay their fair share into the union. I had this conversation at Mid-States, and I asked them, these people are pulling their dues. What's the one thing you would do when somebody told you they were pulling their dues? Bill, what would you do if somebody told you they were pulling their dues out of the union?
I'd ask them why. Why don't you see the value of being a union member?
Exactly. And that is one question that has not been asked by the people who should be asking it. The stewards who are supposed to be representing these carriers, the leadership that is supposed to be representing these carriers, instead gets on stage and tries as hard as he can not to, still calls them a scab, just because he was looking for that applause and reaction from the crowd.
And shame on anybody that did applaud him.
We're all in this together. I say that every episode. What's good for one carrier is good for all carriers. Whether they are dues paying or not, if management gets away with violating the contract with that one carrier, you set past precedent by allowing them to do it. Even if they're non-dues paying and choose not to pay, we still need to protect the craft.
Which, James...
Go ahead, Kristin.
This brings me to an email that we received last week. And I got permission to read this. And this is going to fall right into this now. And I'm going to read this. I, of course, keeping everybody anonymous. So, no names, locations. I received this email 5 days ago. And it starts off with, "You all are the only reason I stay in the union. I recently made regular on a 32-hour route. It did raise to a 34-hour route after the last survey. By definition, I'm not calling it an H route because it's an auxiliary route according to the standards in the contract. To make things worse, we have an auxiliary route in our office that has nearly 4 hours of all the addresses that came off my route a few years ago due to a previous regular having health issues. Sadly, all I hear from everyone, from management to the union, is there's absolutely nothing I can do until management figures out how to train supervisors, because never in 10 plus years did they plan for this scenario. I tried to argue that they had no right to allow me to be put on this route as a regular, since regulars cannot be assigned to an auxiliary route, and yet here we are. I don't need to tell you how much my paychecks have dropped compared to the 50 plus hours a week as a PTF. Even worse was, before I became a regular, the situation was explained to the DR, and they said that there was nothing that could be done to stop me becoming a regular unless I passed it up. Even better, I stated that I might need to drop out of the union just to be able to afford gas to get to work, and they simply explained how to stop union dues due to hardship before my anniversary. They never once suggested or attempted to keep me in the union. Again, the only reason I'm still in the union is this podcast. I was extremely excited to be part of this union after my previous experience in a private sector job. This wreck of wrecks has really turned me sour towards this union. Keep up the fight, and thank you for all you do."
Glad to be here.
And this is why we do it. Because we need to unite everybody. We need a stronger union. And a stronger union does, unfortunately, need dues to put up the good fight for the craft. and this is not me getting on a soapbox talking about, pay money to this, pay money to this. Arbitrations cost a ton of money. Fighting grievances costs a ton of money. Taking care of the craft costs a ton of money. But taking care of the craft and making the job better for every single carrier in the craft is priceless. There is no amount of money you can put on making this career the best it can be for the people that are working it.
I'm gonna correct you there. The best it should be.
Yes.
It should be the best. And, I can go back into the day and when I first started, and I said, "Oh my God, this is the easiest damn job I've ever seen in my life," and we enjoyed it. I mean, the first 4 or 5 years of my career were just like, I want to go to work. And now it's like The View and Rick Mayer and or whoever that is. It's a soap opera all day long. You can throw a little Jerry Springwood in there too once in a while. It gets raucous on the floor ever so often, but it's nothing like what what it was when I joined.
So are you saying these are the days of our lives?
Not that far back.
But yeah, I agree with you. It could be so much better if somebody through the system finally put their foot down, finally started IMIP process, started MOU 25 processes, started fixing management. Because the first step to solving this problem is getting rid of the toxic and hostile work environments in many offices across this country. It's sad when you have to turn around and call a good postmaster a diamond in the rough, a unicorn. Why is it that we can't have good management across this country? Everything is standardized for management. Why can't management itself treat us in a standard way? Like they want us to follow standards, they should follow their standards too. And until they do, we need to bury them in paperwork. And how do we do that, Bill?
File, 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 and smile. It's funny that we're held to a certain standard in regards to our own training with Rex, but yet management's not held to any standard of training to get the position in the first place. Like my office, where we have 7 supervisors, of which 1 actually carried mail. All the way to the postmaster, the rest have never carried mail. Yet they're going to tell us how to do our jobs. They're going to try to micromanage us into being city carriers. You have to leave by this time. You have to be back by that time. If you're stationary for more than one period, I responded to a post or Facebook message about stationary times, and I was questioned about one, and I turned around and gave them an explanation, and then they didn't really go for that. So I gave them a detailed explanation, which they really didn't want to hear. They will never ask me about another stationary item on my scanner again. They don't want to hear my explanations.
And I also feel for a lot of these postmasters too, even though we are adversaries in a lot of situations, sometimes their adversarialness is not because of them. It's because they're trying to stay off of their district manager's list. Because I've heard the calls. I've heard the district managers just reaming the postmasters in a hostile way. These pooms give hostile PMs a run for their money, considering how they talk down to the postmasters that are under their purview. There is toxicity throughout the system. There is flaws throughout the system because there is nobody at the top that is paid the handsome salaries that they are enough to actually take the time to learn what their actual job is.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, James. I was talking to an individual I know in management at another office, and they explained to me that our POOM wrote up 11 supervisors and the district manager in PA2. That's how much audacity these people have in these positions. You wrote up a district manager.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hate to say it, James, but this guy, he might be competing with you with big ones. That takes a lot of huevos, to do that. I mean, damn. You ought to know your limits.
Some of us choose that even when we have that limit, the
Yeah.
protection of the craft is worth more than anything else I do. That is why I get up there. That is why I stand up there and say the things I do. Because this craft means so much to me. You can turn around and say, oh, I'm doing it to benefit myself. Hell yeah, I am. Because when I get done, I'm going right back to my route. So whatever I do to benefit the entire craft benefits my route.
Oh, so you're saying it's self-serving? Is that what you're saying?
In a way, yes. But if it benefits my route, it benefits the craft. If it benefits the craft, it benefits my route. I'm not looking to retire from the national board like certain people up there that said they'd retire last year. I'm looking to make a difference for the betterment of this craft, as is everybody else here. And for us, when we're done in that national office position, we're going right back to our routes. So if I don't fix the things that are wrong with management when I'm in the leadership position, those problems are going to be there when I get to my route. It's
All
that
right,
simple.
guys. I think we're going to try and wrap this up now. I do want to put out that those that announce that are running for national board before we end this.
The updated list.
The updated list that we have as of right now. So those that announced their candidacy this weekend, we have Rita Clark from Texas is running for executive committee. Jake Edel from Texas is running for executive committee. James Brennan from Michigan is running for director of steward operations. Myself, Kristin Wakeman, is running for vice president. Laura Burnside is running for executive committee. And Mike Marola is running for executive committee. And then those that are on the national board currently, Don Maston again is running for president. Patrick Pitts, vice president. Bridget, director of labor. Director of Steward Operations, we have Shirley Baffa and Nikki Phillips. And of course, we all know that Bill May is also running for president. That right now is the updated list of who we have currently that will be running for seeking national office in August in Reno. What does the executive committeemen do? They are your executive committeemen are your NROs. They are the ones that are technically above your district representatives. They are, if you're not getting where you need to go, district representative, you then go to your NRO. And then you move up to director of stewards up after that.
On top of that, they are responsible for attending the national board meetings, which includes contract negotiation meetings, to provide insight to the national board. I'm going to go with Meow's question that they asked. What was your favorite part of Mid-States, Kristin?
My favorite part? Oh, Mid-States is in whole. It's everything for me. It's, getting to hear our national officers and what they have to say, their speeches, their Q&As. Getting to see my rural carrier family from, the Midwest, my mid-state people. It generally, for me, Mid-States in a whole is, it's fully rounded for me. I can't just pick out one particular spot that was my favorite part.
I agree. And the biggest part for me is information. Because that's what this craft needs most of all, is information. We can have a great banquet, breakfast, lunch. We can have great times during the breaks talking with people and mingling and hearing stories from all different people across the country. But it's the information download that is the biggest part for me, because this is, not only do you have the chance to hear what they have to say, but for like the national officers, you can actually write questions that they may answer. And you can get an answer to some of the questions that you have, unless they don't understand the question. And then they get upset about it.
And the one thing I do
But
enjoy about the area conferences, again, I haven't been able to attend any of the other ones. That is still on my bucket list to do eventually. But for me, this was my fifth mid states. But, if you have one of those questions that's really specific or long, you know, and a lot of times, and we had a few of those to where they said, you know what, meet us out in the hallway so we can discuss this with you in person. You're able to have a conversation with a national officer, whether it be in an elevator, out on a smoke break, in the hallway. You can have that discussion because you're not rushing for business. It's, a little bit more laid back, I want to say, in that aspect, because it is an informational conference. It's not a business convention. And so, like I said, I did. I had chit chats with Don Maston in the elevator. I, spoke to Patrick Pitts out on smoke breaks, like a few different times actually. I said hi to Shirley Baffa in passing a couple different times. Ronnie Stutz was there. I had a small conversation with Ronnie as well, and got to see the scars from his back surgery. But he's doing very well, and he looked very good. And I complimented him how well retirement's looking on him. So. But yeah, it's that type of atmosphere to where everybody, you can have that normal person-to-person conversation. I took my daughter with me, and she was welcomed by everybody. She's, like I said, thinking about joining us this fall when she turns 18. She got the full experience. She sat through most of everything with us on Saturday. And she really kind of understood, and she sees what the Union family and brothers, and when we say brothers and sisters in the family aspect of it, she got to experience that. And she sees why I do what I do and why I do it for the craft. And that even a little bit more got her into, hey, maybe I could be a part of this. The camaraderie and the family atmosphere in instances.
I agree.
Yeah,
Having
same thing at SWAC. Me, James, and Toasty. We all got that feeling from the people who came up to us and addressed issues across the board. And it's like talking to your neighbors, talking to a family member, talking to the guy down the street. It's that comfortable an atmosphere, and people open up to you and they express their deep down misgivings. And you can't solve everything for everybody, but sometimes just having that ear is a great sentiment to them, because of the fact that they know we really care, because we go through it every day too.
And actually, I used something like that in part of my speech Saturday. Was being that ear and that shoulder, and wishing that you could do some more for somebody, but always being able, but always being willing to listen and being there, and just unfortunately, like I said, I can't do anything in my position, but here I am trying to be able to be in a position where I can do more for the craft.
I
And
agree.
I think the difference between us and the people on the national board, we're more concerned about the people than the union. The people make up the union, but everybody sees that national board and says, "Oh, that's our union." No, it's not. It's the everyday carrier who works next to you, works across town or across the country. That's us.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the trials and tribulations they go through every day.
Yeah, because we're going through it ourselves.
Yeah. You
And
can sit there and
I was just say,
go
I'll
ahead.
guarantee you, we get on the national board, none of us will let the other forget it either.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and being able to sit there and talk with everybody at Mid States in a casual atmosphere like that, between events, after events, before events. I had the privilege of having a nice long conversation with President Don Maston, and even had coffee with him this morning before the rest of the convention started. I had a great conversation with Vice President Patrick Pitts. I had a short conversation with Kirby Ricketts. I had a short conversation with Shirley Baffa, and it was all friendly. I had so many people come up to the table during breaks and have conversations with me about things, including the podcast, including things that are going on across the country. And so many positives came out of this Mid States convention for me. And I appreciate each and every person that was there so much, because it means a lot that we're actually fighting for this craft through these things as well.
All right, guys. Do we have any other final comments? Or are we just going to wrap it up with that? Because that was a pretty good ending note.
Yep.
Well, we're all in this together no matter what.
Bill, anything else?
No, I'm good. I'll sign off first since you guys still have things to talk about, for your past experience here. So it's good to be back in the U.S. I enjoyed my vacation thoroughly. I needed it. My wife needed it. And I'm looking forward to a new week coming up and getting back into the fight. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys again. I missed you last Sunday. And I'm sorry I missed Mid States, but there's upcoming events that we can participate in, and we will. And I just look forward to, the challenges that, are coming up because of the fact that we, the craft, have the opportunity to make changes for the better. And if we don't take advantage of this situation, then it's on us as a craft. But as long as, we have the will to fight, the 3 or 4 of us that participate every week on Sundays, we're going to fight. We're going to fight for every one of you. And I look forward to opportunity to be able to do that as the president, because that will be such a great challenge that I look forward to and fulfilling. It's not something I take lightly because of the fact that it can uproot your family a bit. But I think that these people we talk to and listen to us are worth it. I think the people I work with, for the most part, are worth it. With that, I'll sign off with everybody. Have a good week. Be safe. Do your job professionally and efficiently, and be safe. Because at the end of the day, you're the most important delivery of the day, and you need to get home to your loved ones.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, definitely. Everybody have a safe week out there. And just remember that, all together we can be that change that we need. And we'll see you back next week.
Lots of rum and Coke.